Hey everyone. So, working with our inner child is important because our inner child is always with us, whether it's our inner child or we have structural dissociation and we have child parts of consciousness. The importance is still the same. It's still going to be affecting us in day-to-day life. Pookie Bear, what are you doing? What are you doing? Being noisy? Shh. Mama's working. So it helps to imagine that we have an actual young child tagging along with us during our day. Let's just do a mindfulness exercise for the next week. Okay? Every single day for the next week, let's just ask ourselves, what would happen if a child was with me right now? It might be something as simple as just pausing to slow down and explain every few minutes what you're doing. You're working, you're going busy, you're going back and forth between projects, you're going at a fast pace. You just pause. Hey, inner child, I'm working right now so we can help pay our bills. I'm getting this project done so we can help meet this goal to help this other person. You can keep it very general and keep it relationship oriented. What's the purpose? There's a relational purpose to everything we do at work, at school, at home. It all has a relational purpose. And so we can connect with our inner child by pausing every few moments to just take a deep breath. That's how we can communicate to our inner child that we're allowed to be still long enough to acknowledge our inner child. They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, they want to know that we know they're there. So Pookie Bear is going nuts. His little inner child needs to feel seen and heard. So I paused the video to make sure he knows he's seen and heard. So pause during your day to just take a deep breath, communicate to your inner child that they're allowed to be here, and you're allowed to know that they're here. Don't make them feel that they need to hide. And then just pause and explain what you're doing and or why you're doing what you're doing. If it's something, within your marriage, it's, hey, I'm going to do this one thing to help my wife, or, and make it relational, add an emotion of satisfaction. I'm going to buy my wife flowers because I love her and I like her to know that I love her. And evoke feelings. Have things be feeling oriented, feeling and goals. Like why you're doing what you're doing, not necessarily goals, but a why, just a why. Kids are just like, why? What's that? Why? And so just pause and explain why you're doing what you're doing. And this can help just reground you in your purpose as an adult. And it can also connect with your inner child and bring a sense of soothing and, hey, we're not an automated machine. We're not people pleasing everyone around us. We're doing this because we're investing in ourselves, you know? And sometimes investing in ourselves means investing in other people. Maybe, maybe it's we have a job and we're investing in pleasing the boss so we can get money, but either way, it's still self-investment. So put the emphasis on how it's self-investment or why it's self-investment, and know that, let your inner child know that you're allowed to stay connected even when you're pursuing these goals and stuff. And things might come up. And the thing is, remember how you would talk to a child if they were there. And the thing I found with children is you don't really have to sugarcoat things as much as like adults lead you to believe. Kids are smart. They get it. They're cool. They just want your honesty and they want your compassion. And so it's better to be fully honest with complete gentleness than to try to buck up and not have that intimate touch um, in your tone, in your body posture, in your emotional approach. Because body posture, emotions, tone, that's all ways that our subconscious, aka our inner child, communicate. I know. And so it's important to just pause throughout the day, take a deep breath, communicate to your child part, hey, I know you're here and that's okay that you're here. And then just explain what you're doing. Hey, I'm doing this thing so we can, later on go do this thing. I'm doing this thing so we can help this other, like whatever it might be. I'm not coming up with like any specific examples right now. But and if you get stuck, if you're like, how do I explain this to a child or my inner child? Let me know. Comment below with anything that is coming up that you'd like help with, like reframing or rephrasing or being able to explain to your inner child. And so, yes, I know. And so, for 1 week, let's just be mindful and pause throughout our day to say, how would I address myself or the situation if there was a young child with me? Okay? And regardless of the age of our inner child, we can adjust the age of the perception to like what might help. Like Ocean, for example, is a very young age in terms of like brain balance and like all sorts of things. Like there's a lot of different stuff that goes on. And in terms of the things that she might need, it might occasionally resemble that. But at the same time, like a very young age, I mean, but at the same time, she has a very high level of comprehension. And so I can explain, hey, like I know you really want to go out and play right now, but, I got to do these things because XYZ or whatever. And there might be a little bit of grumpiness, but like she's going to be understanding. And so, finding ways to explain what we're doing in our busy adult lives, just pausing and taking a moment to let our inner child know, I see you, and let me include you by explaining what we're doing or why this is important, why this matters, why you have to be here doing this thing, And then the flip side of that is that the more we can nurture our inner child at home, the less they will intrude on our daily life as adults outside of the home. And so creating space for them is important because if we can create space in our private lives, then our public lives won't suffer the way that they do when we're suppressing our inner child at home too. And so it basically becomes like a requirement to nurture your inner child. And it doesn't have to look like much. It doesn't have to be something visibly, like externally visible. It could be as simple as including the inner child in a mental conversation. Maybe you're watching a family-friendly movie, and instead of just watching from an adult's perspective, you use some aromatherapy, you use some tactile grounding tools, you eat a snack that, maybe a child would like more than an adult. And again, like all of these things don't have to be externally obvious of like, I'm nurturing my inner child. There's child parts present. It could be, hey, I'm just using grounding and it's going to just help me relax into the evening more. Just leave it simple. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be this very awkward, obvious thing. And so use some stuff that would help a child part come out. Tactile grounding, aromatherapy, a nice little snack that might appeal to a child. And then watching a family-friendly movie and just taking the mindful attentiveness to pause and ask, how would a child view this movie? And just see what comes up. And again, if you're watching a movie, you're allowed to sit there and feel these waves of chaos. Just keep breathing and using your tactile stuff, and whoever you're sitting with can be distracted with the movie and not notice that you're doing this with your hands, or whatever it might be. Child parts are like children. They just want to be included. You don't have to stop and give them the entire world and bend over backwards and buy them 10 million ponies. They just want to feel loved and appreciated and like they're allowed to be here. And so nurturing my inner child has been a lot of really simple, small things. And so I'll try to like go back and maybe like make a list of little suggestions and stuff like that. But it's just really, really small things. And sometimes it's like only 5 minutes of it is needed, and then I can work on my adult stuff for hours. Like it varies, but oftentimes that's what it is, because they just want to know that they're seen and heard. And the other part about this is the more we do the work with the child parts, the less work will need to be done on a consistent basis. Like at first, maybe the child parts, they're going to be, it's going to be an emotional roller coaster of sorts, but that's just because they're scared that you're not serious. They're afraid that you don't mean what you mean when you invite them to be present. Those emotions are just their fears, coming in a variety of ways, implicit memories, anger. It could be a variety of things, but it all comes down to fear. And we help them conquer that fear by continually showing up for them. And again, like how that manifests like physically can be different. It could be something as simple as doing a guided meditation to nurture your inner child once a day. And that's something you have headphones on, you're silent. It doesn't have to be externally visible if the people in your vicinity are not included in what's happening with the recovery process. It doesn't have to be this obvious, awkward thing. And so, like, a lot of the stuff I do is very obvious and awkward, but that's because we've worked to get to this point, and it's more effective for us. So it's like a few minutes of this and I'm set. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything. And it wasn't always like this for me either. So it's all a process. It's all a journey. So I'll work on making like a list of ideas, things that would be externally visible and things that would be, something you could discreetly incorporate in your daily routine. Feel free to remind me of this goal. I have so many different things going on. I know my wrist is all messed up. So many different things going on. I keep forgetting to come back to the projects that I say I will. So please feel free to hold me accountable. But I hope to make a list of like suggestions, like little short suggestions. So definitely doing and suggest nurture your inner child meditations with some journaling afterwards. And it doesn't have to be this big long thing, but if you can sit with your inner child for 10 minutes a day for starters, 30 minutes a day if you can afford it. And maybe it looks like, leaving for work a little early. Maybe it looks like using your lunch break to privately go nurture your inner child, go sit at a park, do a guided meditation, get away from the people you see on a day-to-day basis and just allow yourself to be. Maybe it looks like after work going and watching the sunset somewhere and, again, the guided meditation really is the best place to start because until there's some like addressing of what comes up through that, there's not going to be a lot of impulses and urges and ideas. Because a lot of the stuff I've done is, listen to those impulses and urges and ideas from my inner child. But there was months of work before that where I had to learn how to listen. So taking time to learn how to listen is a great place to start. Guided meditations for nurturing your child are best. There's a bunch on YouTube, a couple really great ones. Eventually, I hope to make one, or several, I guess, but I haven't been in a position to do that lately. So goals for the coming year. So for the next week, just take some time every day to be mindful. Every few hours, just deep breath. Pause. How would a child perceive this present situation? And what's one thing I can do to explain what's happening so the inner child within me can feel a sense of ease? Have a beautiful and blessed day, soul friends. Namaste.